Hello, algebra folks. It's Ms. Strong. I'm back for another video recording, and this time we'll be looking at homework 2 in Unit 2. We're going to be looking at number lines and ordering numbers. The very first question in your homework assignment gives you a number line far less complicated than this one, by the way, and simply asks you to name the coordinates of the points graphed on the number line. They want you to name the numbers that have little marks on them. So this number has a mark on it, so I would name point 3. I could also say that that was the letter, the coordinate of that point was point P, but yours doesn't have letters on it. You don't have to worry about that. They're really just wanting you to recognize that when you see a point colored in on the number line, we are naming that coordinate, in this case 5/10, 1/2. Okay, not too terrible, right? Let's order numbers. We need to make sure that when we're dealing with negative numbers in particular, and fractions and decimals, that we can order them in the correct order from least to greatest. So let's play around with that a little bit. I always tell students that when they are ordering decimals, they need to think about money. Make your decimal look like money. And if you do, you usually do just fine in ordering it because you deal with money fairly well. So I have to keep in mind if I'm ordering from least to greatest or greatest to least. So read carefully. This time I want to put the smallest numbers first. So I have to keep in mind that when a number is negative, if it looks big, it's really smaller. In other words, -2 is smaller than -1. And you can tell on the number line if it's further to the left, anything over here is going to get smaller. Everything this direction gets larger. So the first thing we probably need to do is just point out or pick out our negative numbers. So let's do that. -2, -1, -0.89. So those are going to be the smallest numbers, and the one that looks the largest, which is -2, is going to be the very smallest. There he is, right there. The next one's going to be -1. He's right there. Uh-oh, no, he's not. I'm going to move that to the right place, huh? I put it on 1. Let's see if I can get it over to -1. There we go. Here's -1. He would be the next smallest, and I'll keep getting larger. -0.89. Now, I said look at that like money. Do you see that as 89 cents? I hope that's what I want you to see that. And in particular, since it's negative, I think of it as I owe somebody 89 cents. And I would never write the 0. It's not wrong. I just don't write things I don't need to write. So I would write simply 0.89 is 89 cents or 89 hundredths of a dollar. Last one, 1.75, obviously a little bit bigger. And I'll go ahead and put these on here too. There's -0.89, not quite as small as -1. In other words, I'd rather owe somebody 89 cents than $1, because then I have less money if I owe somebody $1. I'm smaller. And then $1.75 is over here, close to 2, but not quite on 2. Pretty straightforward, right? Well, you need to be able to do that when you have decimals, fractions, and percent. So I thought I would help you out with one more with decimals and fractions in it. What I want to do with fractions is to first change them into decimals. I order decimals much more easily than I do fractions. Now, I know in the past that was something somewhat difficult for you sometimes, but you had a calculator to take care of that problem these days. So I will get my calculator out in a little bit. Right now, I'm just going to tell you what I'm pressing. I need 1/3, so I'm going to press 1 divided by 3. And it will give me a decimal answer. What it tells me, and I'm going to go ahead and put the negative in. Notice I didn't have to when I was on my calculator. I really just wanted to know what 1/3 was equal to. And my calculator tells me it's 0.333 repeating. In other words, it's a little bit over 33 cents. If it were 0.33, it'd be 33 cents. But since it has a 3 repeating, we know we have a little bit more than that. So he's a negative guy. Here's another negative guy. I think I need to take care of both of them first. So 4 over 2. Well, I recognize that that number is 2, but you might not. So 4 divided by 2 on your calculator will remind you that that is simply the number -2. 1/2, you can do it on the calculator, but we happen to know that 1/2 is 0.5, right? And 4/3, that's the same as 1 1/3, which is the same as 1.333, repeating, remember, we learned the 1/3 over here. So it's about $1.33, but it's a little bit more than $1.33. Okay, now that we have decimals, we can start thinking about money and start thinking about ordering them from least to greatest. So my very smallest one is going to be the negative guy. That looks big, but he's really very small. I think I'm just going to number them. Let me get myself a different color. So the very smallest number is going to be -2, this guy. The next smallest is going to be the only other negative guy that's here. So those are the 2 smallest ones. Now I need to take the smallest one that I see left. And I think the only one that's less than one whole, in other words, the only one between here at 0 and 1 is 1/2. So that one must be the next largest. And then I'm going to keep traveling down my number line. Which one will I get to next? I think that I will get to $1.03 next. Hope you see that as $1.03. Then I will come to $1.30. Now it's kind of odd because it doesn't have the 0 there, right? But that's one of the things you can do to help yourself see it as money. You can put that 0 in. And then 1.33 is going to be the largest number here. It's $1.33 and a little bit more. Just a tiny bit more because it keeps going here. If those were zeros, it would be exactly $1.33. If it's any number that's not a 0, then it's making it a little more than $1.33. So we know how to order numbers from least to greatest and greatest to least. It's important for us to be able to say between 2 numbers which one is smaller and which one is larger. So we want to be able to use these greater than and less than signs. I like this little thing up here. It reminds you that when you read this sign, you see the big part first, right? See this guy? You see that big part first? That's why you know to say greater than. And when you're reading it, and I say reading it because we read from left to right, I notice the little point first. So that tells me that one's less than. Now I need to decide which direction I'm going to put those little signs in each of these problems. So let's talk about it just a little bit. -20 versus -21. Well, I know that 21 looks bigger, but they're both negative. So it really means I owe $21. I'm in debt $21, and so I should say -21 is really a smaller number than -20. If I how about here? I have $3.45, and over here I simply have $3.40. So clearly $3.45 is going to be the greater. Now when it comes to fractions, I know you have a difficult time sometimes ordering them, and I'm going to show you a little trick that you can use if you like. I'm also going to show you how to do it on the calculator, but this is kind of cool. If we take this fraction and we come up here and we multiply, and we write that number right here. So I'm going to write 3 times 4, I know is 12, so I'll write it 12. I'm going to do the same thing in this direction, 9 times 1, and put the 9 here. Make sure you're putting them on top and doing it just like I did it, because like I say, it really is kind of a trick. So now, since 12 is bigger than 9, I know that 4/9 is greater than 1/3. Kind of a trick, huh? Well, on a screen or two, I'll do it on the calculator to show you it in a non-tricky way. How about this last one, comparing $1.03 to 3/2? Well, the first thing I want to do is think about 3/2. What is that? I happen to know that 3/2 is 1.5, or $1.50, 1.5. If you didn't know that, you could pop it in your calculator and it would tell you. I'll show you how in just a sec. So $1.03 versus $1.50, obviously $1.50 is greater. So I would say I would want to open it up toward the larger of the two. Now it's time to use our handy dandy trusty nifty calculator that we really like so much to show you how these work on math. So I'm bringing it up for you right now. I'm hoping it's just popping up. I don't think it's there yet, so I'm going to give it just a second. Yep. Sorry, sometimes it takes just a little bit to get it up there. Awesome. Okay, so now I think you can see my calculator. Let's learn how to put fractions in to get decimals. And the very first thing I need you to know is anytime you put in a fraction, it is wise to put it in parentheses. You don't have to all the time, but I do because I know there's times that if I don't put it in parentheses, I'm going to get wrong answers. So I just make it a habit. When I put in a fraction, I put it in parentheses. 4 divided by 3, or 4/3, is the same as, it tells me, 1.3333 forever. If I want to think about that as money, I just look at the first 2 decimals and think that's $1.33. You don't need parentheses when you just put a simple fraction in like this, but again, I'm kind of funny about that because I know there are times it can mess you up. So I encourage you to always put fractions inside parentheses. This is a cool little trick that our calculator does. What if you have a decimal and you would like it to be a fraction? Most calculators won't do this, but our cool, nifty, handy-dandy, trusty calculator does. Here's how you do it. So I want to make that into a fraction. So I will go to Math, that little button that says Math, and see how number 1 says fraction. So it's already highlighted in black, the 1 is. That means I can press Enter, or I could just choose the number 1, either one. When I press Enter, it says, do you want me to take this answer and make it a fraction? And I press Enter to say yes. And it says, okay, that is 4/3. Kind of cool, huh? It does that with any decimal that we put in. You can get it to tell you what the fraction equivalent is. Kind of cool? So now let me show you another thing on the calculator that's going to help you decide which number is bigger and which number is smaller if you're having a difficult time with that. You can use the button right here that says Math, but notice right above it, it says Test. And to get it to use the test function, since the word test is in blue, I know that I have to come up here and hit the second button and then hit the test button, so, or math button. So here's the way that looks. Let's say that I want to compare the fraction 4 divided by 3 to the fraction, well, I can't put it in yet, so I want to compare it. I think this, second math, when I push second math, I get all these choices, and I think 4/3 is going to be greater than the next fraction I put in. So I'm going to choose this little greater than symbol, and I choose it just like that. So now it says 4/3 greater than, and I'm going to say, how about 3/3? Is 4/3, this is my question to the calculator, is 4/3 greater than 3/3? Let's see. Well, 4/3 is obviously greater than 3/3, so I got a 1 back. When it's not true, I will get a 0 back. So let me show you one. Let me show you one that comes back as a 0. I'm also going to show you another cool trick. I don't really want to type all of that back in. So instead, I think I'll tell my calculator to retype the entry for me. And that's right up over the enter button. It says entry. And I can say second entry, and it just types it right back in there, and I don't have to do it myself. It's just a nice little shortcut. But this time, I'm going to toggle back with my little arrow button, and instead of having a greater than sign there, I'm going to test and see. Second math to test. Is it less than this time? So I'm going to change that little button to less than. Whoops. Try that again. Oh, it's making me remember I kind of forgot to talk about or equal to, but I'll do that in just a moment too. Okay, so there's my, now I'm asking is 4/3 less than 3/3? And when I press enter, it comes back with a 0. And that 0 tells me that it's false. No, it is not less than 4/3, in other words. Okay, I think that's what you need to get your homework finished up this time. I think it's homework 2. Good luck with it, and I will see you back in class, right? I think so.